this is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're finally going to look at the Dell Venue 11 Pro. This is a Windows 8 tablet available with Intel Atom, that's what we're looking at, or Intel Core i3 and i5 CPUs. Thinner than Surface 2, lighter than Surface Pro 2, and we're going to look at it now. So here it is, the Dell Venue 11 Pro. Waited for this one for quite some time for review, and finally Dell has some review units ready. As you can see, as a Windows tablet goes, this is pretty darn slim. When you look thinking about something like the Surface Pro 2, which isn't exactly a chunky monkey, but it's got some chunkiness to it. It's also pretty light, 1.56 pounds. For the Intel Atom version, if you get the Core i version, it's going to be a little bit heavier because it's going to have a fan inside, a little bit more cooling internals, but pretty darn close, still lighter than Surface Pro 2. This one really is not a direct competitor, though. This is the Intel Atom model that we've got here, and it's a capable enough device to use for office, for web, for productivity, a little streaming video, but it doesn't have the horsepower of the full Intel Core i5 U series Ultrabook CPU that is in Surface Pro 2. That one is still the Surface Pro 2 in its own camp for having actual Ultrabook internals and power. However, as I mentioned, as a productivity tool, this thing is great for media consumption. Obviously, it's up to the job of doing web and anything else, and this is full Windows here. This is Windows 8.1 32-bit because Microsoft doesn't have the 64-bit ready for the latest generation of Intel Atom Bay Trail CPUs yet. So we're running 32-bit, but full desktop over here. You can install Windows EXEs. As you can see right here, we have Steam running right now. Capacitive home button right here. It will vibrate when you touch it. You can, of course, when you're in the desktop, use the new start menu over there that's on the desktop, and if you press and hold or do a right click, you can get more functionality. In terms of ports on the side here, we have our headphone jack, volume controls. There's one of the two stereo speakers. As you might guess, the other speaker is on the opposite side. Right here we have a micro USB port. That's for charging, not for peripheral plug-in. And this comes with an interesting charger. I'll show it to you right here. It's a dual voltage, dual wattage charger, so you really do have to use this charger with it. And that's not the end of the world, but it comes with a little 3-foot cord like your smartphone would. That is just like so annoying, right? You're going to be using this like a tablet or a laptop, so you have to plug it in. That's not much cord. Happily, there are other cords on the market, though. Some people have said that some aftermarket longer cords actually don't work to carry the full voltage. On the bottom here, a ASUS transformer light because, well, that's how this one works as well. Here's your connectivity pins right here, another connector port here, and locator pins for the optional dock, which is the thing that we have sitting back here. In fact, there are two optional docks, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Here we have a micro SD card slot, mini HDMI lock slot as well, and there's our other speaker. Up top we have the power button. By the way, this is a USB port here, full-size USB port for peripherals. So that's something that's nice that you don't see on the 8-inch Windows tablets that are also running Bay Trail. So you can just plug in keyboard, mouse, anything at all that works with Windows will work with this because this runs full Windows. The back is soft touch plastic. Now on the Atom version, there's really not much give here. People have complained about the Intel Core i3 and i5 units. Well, they need a little more room for the cooling. It's not the end of the world. They are designed to flex. As you can see, the NFC logo right here, that's where your NFC is. 8-megapixel camera on the back. And what's really special about this guy is, see this little slot right here? That is for actually taking the back cover off. Tablets are almost always sealed, but not this guy. It's not too hard to rip it off. It's got about 1,000 little tabs here. Okay, not really 1,000, but a lot of them to press back on. But this gives you access to the actual removable battery inside. Now, that's an unusual thing. And for a business-oriented tablet where folks are going to use this on the road in the day and they won't have access to electricity to plug in, it's nice to be able to swap it in another battery. And as you can see, it's a 32-watt-hour 2-cell battery here. Now, if you have the Core i5 or i3 versions, you'd have access to some more internals. You'd have access to your SSD, SATA drive, and also to the wide area networking card if you get that 4G LTE card, for example. Here in the case of the Atom, there's really nothing that you can access to upgrade. Everything is soldered on the motherboard with this gun. So what's inside for our Intel Atom Bay Trail model that lists for $499 on Dell's website? By the way, retailers who carry this tend to carry it for $50 more, and even the accessories that go with it cost a bit more than they do on Dell.com. Don't know why that is, but that is. Anyway, $499 on Dell.com for this model. This has the Intel Atom Bay Trail Z3770 CPU that's clocked at 1.46 gigahertz with turbo boost up to 2.4 gigahertz, and it's a quad-core CPU. So for an Atom, it's not a lightweight at all. It's actually a really good performer. As we've noted with some of the other recent Intel Atom Bay Trail tablets that we reviewed that are running Windows. 2 gigs of RAM inside, that is not upgradable, and you will run into that as a limitation if you do more than, say, 2 or 3 applications running at once. It really depends on the applications that you're using. If some of them are heavyweights like Photoshop, you'll notice it. Even when we were running Left 4 Dead 2 there in Steam and nothing else was running, we got low memory errors from Windows. So keep that in mind. This is really for lightweight portable productivity. This is not meant to be your main machine, hopefully. Inside we have 64 gigs of flash storage as eMMC flash storage. That's not an SSD drive. It's flash-based, but it's not nearly as fast. And that really has been one of the limitations so far on our Intel Atom-based products. The storage subsystem is slow. And I'll show you the Crystal Disk Mark score so you can get an idea. So here are the Crystal Disk Mark scores. Now, those are about 1/4 of the speed of an SSD. In fact, there's some conventional spinning hard drives, especially 7200 RPM drives with caches, that will score a lot higher than this. What does that translate into? Slower application load times. It's not the end of the world slow, but you'll notice it in installing programs is going to take a lot longer on this than it would with something with faster storage subsystem. Such is the life with our Intel Atom right now. You have dual band Wi-Fi, 802.11 BGN on here, and Bluetooth, again, as well as NFC. 3G, 4G is optional on this. Our unit does not have that. Now, for those of you who have greater need for speed, you can get this with the Intel Core i3 or i5 Y series Haswell CPUs. The Ys are dual voltage, lower power versions of the Ultrabook U series CPU, so you won't get quite the same speed. So for example, the Core i5 on this one, 1.5 gigahertz at 4210, will fall in between the benchmark scores of our Atom here and the Surface Pro 2 that's running on a full Core i5 U series Ultrabook CPU. To make this as thin and light as it is, Dell made a decision to actually go with the Y series CPU as your top option here. So for those of you who do need more speed, again, in a tablet, it's back to Surface Pro 2 or Ultrabooks, convertible Ultrabooks, something like the Asus Transformer Book T300, which has a full Core i5 or i7 Ultrabook CPU in a 13.3-inch chassis. Pretty hard to fit that kind of stuff into a space this small, though really Microsoft is one of the few to do it. If you do go with the i5 version, you will be able to get 4 gigs of RAM and a traditional 128 gig mSATA SSD in there. That'll be a lot faster storage system, more memory to run programs, and you'll get more frames per second on something like Left 4 Dead 2, and you can do some video editing and Photoshop raw file work without feeling things slow down a bit, which they do on our friend here occasionally. So how about accessories? Dell just knows corporate companies love accessories, so here's a couple of them. This is the same pen that we used on our Dell Venue 8. This is Synaptics Digitizer and pen. Good news is it's less possessed by the devil than it is on the Dell Venue 8. I have both of them in house right here. I have the Dell Venue 8 beside me, and I can tell you that still hover clicks and is a little demon. This is not so bad. I'll demonstrate it to you, but nice pen, metal body, uses one quadruple A battery. That's 4 A's, not 3 A's, not 2 A's. Sells for $30, not included with the tablet. For keyboard docks, we have the more robust one. This really is a nice keyboard dock. It's also kind of expensive, $159 on Dell's website, $200 from our local retailers. Obviously, we get a trackpad here. It's big enough for multi-touch gestures. I mostly stay away from those, though, because there's just not that much space other than two-finger scrolling. Really nice keyboard. Now, Dell with their XPS line, they just know how to make a great keyboard. They're right up there with Lenovo and their ThinkPad keyboard, so it may be small, feeling like you're working on an 11.6-inch device, which really can make all the difference. It is a more pleasant experience than any of the Surface keyboard covers that are currently available, even the one with the clicky keys. Good key travel on here. Nice weight. This weighs 1.75 pounds, so it's actually a little bit heavier than the tablet. The upside of that is you don't have a tippy kind of design. Sometimes the tablet's actually heavier than the dock on these Transformer style products and they tip over. Not going to happen here. Well made, no flex. Almost exactly like the Transformer style dock here with the locator pins, connectors over here, release button right there so you can snap it in and out. Now it looks like it'd be really easy to get in and out, but I found I actually had to pay some attention and put some effort into lining it up properly. There's a soft touch felt here, so you're not going to scratch anything. And better yet, there's a battery inside of this too, which can extend battery life of the tablet by 50%. Bad news is there are no ports here. I was hoping for a USB 3.0 port or 2.0 port on here. Not going to happen. Sorry. Now, for those of you who want to travel a little lighter, a little cheaper, for $129, $139, there is something more like the Surface type cover too. It has clicky keys on it. It's a soft touch material that wraps around the back, kind of acts as a case. Does not have a battery inside, so that's going to be a lot lighter. Still give you a typing experience. There's also a dock that Dell sells for this, again around $129 or $139. It has HDMI and DisplayPort out. I've heard some problems with the DisplayPort from some folks saying that only Dell monitors are working right now. Haven't been able to test that because we didn't receive that from Dell. And it has USB 3.0 ports on it too. And here it is docked in the Dell mobile keyboard, and it looks just like a little laptop, doesn't it? And it functions like one. Doesn't go very far back. The tipping right here, that's as far back as it actually goes. You can see the tablet rests down and raises up the keyboard a little bit for comfortable typing height. Feels nice, easy to work with. And if you close it, it still looks like a little laptop, doesn't it? With that Transformer style little prominence on the back that we've seen on ASUS's Transformer books on the HP split, because that's where the mount point is to put the product in. Now, the disconcerting news here is because the keyboard dock is 1.75 pounds, our tablet is a little over 1.5 pounds. This is not the lightest combo. Now, that's the problem with the Transformer Windows products in general. They tend to be heavier than just a straight Ultrabook would be, certainly heavier than a tablet would be. So together, our scale says that you're looking at 3¼ pounds. So basically, this is as heavy as the Dell XPS 12. Yikes. It is, however, even more small and more portable than the XPS 12 since it's a 10.6-inch product. So how did the battery work on this? Well, what it's going to do is it's going to use up the dock battery first. If you have them both working together, plugged in together as a happy family, and when it's depleted the dock battery, it'll then start using the tablet battery, which is intelligent design, and that's how it should be. And we'll see on the system tray in Windows that it shows the battery capacity of each one. You don't have to plug in the dock separately to charge it. If you plug the tablet charger into the tablet, it will charge both of them. So that's pretty handy too. Now you can just charge the dock by itself if you want to. And it's a funny place that they put it in. You might even miss it at first. You see how easy that release action is. The charging micro USB port is right over here. Funny, but it is. And for a little size comparison, this is the Dell Venue 8 Pro right here, 8-inch Windows tablet. You get the idea. Now, another thing that really sets this apart is the full HD display that we've got going here. 1920 by 1080 resolution IPS display, 414 nits of brightness. Now, you have to disable Windows Auto Brightness to see that because it's at best draconian and at worst unusably dark. So do that and just set the brightness yourself because it gets wildly bright, this display. So for our color gamut right here, 99% of sRGB. Wow, that is really excellent, even among the best Windows Ultrabooks that are on the market and tablets too. And for our Adobe RGB, 77%. So very, very nice display here, very wide color gamut, very good factory calibration to our Spider 4 Pro colorimeter. Really had to make very few changes to get this to be as spot on as it could be. Excellent display. As that compared to Surface Pro 2 display, well, it's 0.2 inches larger. This is 10.8 inches, so that size difference is negligible. But in terms of color gamut, the Dell is significantly better. We have about 50% of Adobe RGB on the Surface Pro 2 versus, well, 77% here, for example. So certainly better color fidelity, better color representation on the spectrum. Now, average users, if you're watching a movie, if you're looking at photos, you probably won't even notice the difference. For graphics professionals, it makes a difference. So I know a lot of you like to push these machines to do maybe more than they were meant to do. In this case, we're going to try out a Steam game, and we have Fraps loaded so you can see the frame rates. And we're going to play Left 4 Dead 2, which is one of the more forgiving games that you can run on the Windows desktop. So here are the settings that we're using. You can see the resolution, and we'll look at advanced settings, and pretty much everything is set to low, as you can see here. We'll see how it plays. So you can see our frame rate's not ideal exactly, right? As we spin around the environment, it manages okay there though. So let's go inside. So here we've got some action going on. And the game is kind of jerky, you know, so you can play Windows games meant for the desktop, some of the more forgiving ones, but it's not the smoothest, easiest to play experience, but hey, it's better than nothing. And I know some of you are even playing this on the Dell Venue 8 Pro, so there it is. Now if you get the Intel Core i5 Y series version of this, be a little bit smoother, but still not like playing on a full Core i5 ULV CPU or a full mobile CPU. So now that we've seen a little torture test, things like web browsing, this is IE on the desktop, absolutely fine, responsive enough, no problems there. We'll play some video so you can see, but it can handle up to full HD streaming video. I did notice sometimes occasionally processing streams at full HD would drop down a little bit in quality, then pick back up again compared to something like an Ultrabook CPU, but overall did pretty well. For synthetic benchmarks, our Intel Atom model had PCMark 7 score of 2658. With Ultrabook CPUs, we usually see about 2,000 points higher. So you get the idea. If you got the Intel Core i5 Y series, you would probably get about 1,000 points more, putting it around 3,600. 3D Mark 11, performance mode 212. Usually we see around 800 to 1,000 on an Ultrabook. To give you an idea, that's why our Left 4 Dead gaming wasn't exactly the most inspired experience. W Prime, it computed Pi in 26.17 seconds. Geekbench 3, 32-bit test, obviously, since this is 32-bit Windows here. 970 single core and multi-core 3125. Now the multi-core score is high because it extrapolates what it can do with multiple cores, and this is a quad-core CPU versus the usual dual-core on an Intel, say, i4200U Core i5 CPU. So how about video playback and speakers? We'll look at our Dell XPS 12 video review here and give that a try. Raise the volume a little bit. You can see we're up to 50% volume now. The hardware keys on the keyboard, you don't need an FN key by default, just use them.
Today we're going to look at the Dell XPS 12. This is the latest edition with Intel Haswell inside. We originally reviewed the first Ivy Bridge that came out, but
1080 full screen.
Really worth talking about, and you might find out a great sale, particularly right now around the holiday season. Some insane sales, worth a look. Pretty neat, isn't it? This is the Dell XPS 12. Some of you are familiar with this because this came out actually late last year, early this year, as an Intel Ivy Bridge 3rd generation Windows 8 convertible.
So there it is. It plays fine. You saw it do a little bit of catch up there when we switched resolution and to full HD, but it did manage to catch up. The speakers, it's funny, the Dell Venue 8 Pro had really amazingly loud speakers, and the Venue 11 does not. It is not the loudest, the Venue 11 Pro, in terms of audio quality. Now, the quality itself isn't bad. It's not too tinny. It's not too harsh. Obviously, you're not going to get much bass in something this small, but yeah, not really, really loud. And now for comparison, this is Surface Pro 2 here in the front, and our Dell Venue 11 Pro. And the Surface Pro 2, of course, is going to be bit thicker there. They hide it with a little bit in the cant and the design right there. Footprint slightly smaller, but not much different there. Of course, this guy weighs 2 pounds, so it's a bit heavier, and this one has a metal casing. No removable back, so you can't swap in a spare battery, but you do get the 2-position kickstand on the Surface Pro 2 and more horsepower. Now for our Atom model, battery life is stupendous. The Atom has no fan, so it's silent, it's fairly cool, and battery life is excellent. Dell claims somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. We've been seeing about 8.5 hours or so on that. Whereas this guy right here, this is about 6.5 hours for the Surface Pro 2. But this is a Core CPU, so it's not a fair comparison, is it? For the Dell Venue 11 Pro with the Core i5 CPU, expect around 6.5 hours as well. But if you add in that battery dock, you're going to add in about 50% more runtime. And so far, we've managed about, Dell claims 15 with the Atom, we've managed about 11, 12-hour runtimes with this, plus the keyboard dock, which is still really darn good for a full Windows PC. So how about the optional pen that works with this? Well, it, like I said, is not possessed like it is on the Dell Venue Pro 8, but one thing, if you use it as a mouse replacement, the longer it has contact with the screen, the more possessed sometimes it becomes, and sometimes hovers turn into clicks. You can see it's starting to do just a little bit of that, but see, I didn't touch the screen, I was just near there. So it still does some hover clicking, but it's a lot more controlled because you're probably not going to stand and hold your pen for that long over something. So not too bad, not ideal, not as good as Wacom and N-Trig yet. Now if we want to do something like art, we've got Art Rage 4 installed here, which has pressure sensitivity for Windows Ink APIs, which means all of these modern kind of pens. And we have pressure sensitivity. I go from a thin line to a heavier line. Now the pressure curves aren't as nicely tuned as they are with Wacom or with N-Trig digitizers, but it's not too bad. Now that looks good. Now the one thing is, this is an Art Rage bug. This actually isn't the Dell's fault. They had the same problem with N-Trig, but they updated and fixed that. These lines look okay in weight, right? Now if I switch to the pencil, it's going to start to look very faint. But it's usable. But if I use my finger, notice how much darker it is. I'm sure Art Rage will address that eventually, but it's still very usable. And you can see I'm not having any phantom lines or weird things happening like happened still with my Venue 8 Pro. How about note-taking? We'll try out Windows Journal. Now you could also use OneNote 2013, and one nice thing about these Atom-powered tablets is you get Office 2013 Home and Student Edition. That gets you Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and OneNote. It does not get you Outlook. And I am resting my hand on the screen. Got one phantom mark there, but generally given the very far hover distance here, you can see the little pen tip tracking, it's not going to be a problem. The Journal doesn't make your writing look as pretty as OneNote does, but you get the idea. And now I'm using the right click here, so it's bringing up that right click menu option. So it works. It's much more controllable. Again, it's not up there with the Wacom digitizer used on ThinkPads or the N-Trig digitizer used mostly on Sony's these days, but it can certainly do the job. It's not a disaster. No crazy things are happening. So for those of you who like to take digital notes, it works. So that's the Dell Venue 11 Pro. It's available now, again, in your choice of Intel Atom or Core i CPUs. And it's great to accessorize with, obviously, a couple of different keyboard options. We've got a pen. There's also a dock. In the end, as business tablets go, it's certainly one of the top picks. Obviously, as a consumer tablet, it's going to seem quite expensive compared to some of the ASUS Transformer Book T100, but it's got more to offer here. It's got a certainly more durable build, a much better display, and again, the accessory options. I'm Lisa for Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.